Leona Wells walked into a luxury car dealership dressed simply, only to face cold rejection and silent judgment. But beneath her worn clothes lies a fierce single mother and nonprofit founder whose strength challenges a world obsessed with appearances. When a powerful billionaire returns to support her fight, the story turns into a battle for dignity, respect, and justice. Who is Leona really? And what will it take for her to be seen? Tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to hear more inspiring stories that reveal the power of true worth beyond looks. Leona Wells stepped through the heavy glass doors of Montclair Elite Motors wearing scuffed sneakers, faded jeans, and a plain gray hoodie pulled over a clean white tee. Her curly hair was tied back in a simple bun, and her face carried that calm stillness found only in people who've had to hold it together far too often. She glanced briefly at the dazzling showroom before walking toward the glossy black coupe rotating on a pedestal near the back. Her voice was low, polite, but firm. "Excuse me, I'm interested in the Midnight Onyx coupe." A tall man in a dark blue tailored suit looked up from his espresso. Conrad Blake, the senior sales manager, didn't stand right away. His eyes scanned her outfit, then flicked down to her shoes. He chuckled under his breath, then set down the cup with a soft clink. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" he asked, his tone almost bored. "That model starts at $300,000, ma'am. Before tax, most people just stop by to take selfies." Leona didn't flinch. She simply said, "I'd like to know more about it." Another salesman, seated nearby, tried and failed to suppress a laugh. A receptionist exchanged a look with a customer browsing a Bentley catalog. Leona felt the weight of their stares, a mix of curiosity and dismissal, like they were watching a child trying to buy a skyscraper with coins. Conrad stood up slowly, adjusting his cufflinks as he approached. "It's by appointment only. But maybe there's something more your style across the street. They have used sedans starting at 10 grand. She tightened the strap of her crossbody bag, not because it was slipping, but because her hands needed something to do. Her jaw clenched, but she said nothing. Years of swallowing indignities taught her how to hold silence like a shield. "I'll come back," she said softly, then turned around and walked out. No one followed. No one cared. Outside, the late October wind was sharp. As she stepped into it, Leona didn't cry. Her fingers, numb with cold and embarrassment, clenched around the folder in her hand, a neatly prepared packet with all the specs of the coupe, down to the leather grain and trim codes. She'd spent 2 weeks researching it, saving up for months after selling the last remnant of her late mother's condo. The car wasn't a luxury to her. It was a promise, a gift she had vowed to give her sister Brielle, who had survived 2 years of cancer treatment. That night, after tucking her 6-year-old daughter into bed, Leona sat at her kitchen table, staring at the softly lit photo frame on the shelf. It was a picture of her younger self, in her early 20s, smiling in the arms of a man with intense eyes and messy, dark hair. Elias Rowe, the boy she had loved before the world got complicated. He had left without a word the moment she told him she was pregnant. No goodbye. Just a message. "I can't. I'm sorry." She hadn't heard from him in over a decade. But she knew where he was. You couldn't live in Boston and not hear the name Elias Rowe, the clean energy billionaire who graced Forbes covers and TED stages like he belonged there. Leona hesitated. Her fingers hovered over her keyboard. Then she typed slowly, simply. "Subject, just a visit. I'm not coming because I need anything from you. I just need someone to see clearly what you once said to me. Value isn't in what you wear, it's in what you stand for." She hit send. Then she closed her laptop, exhaled, and sat in the dark. She didn't expect a reply, and she didn't need him to show up. But she needed the world to finally see her. The next morning, Leona stood in front of the dealership once more. The wind had chilled overnight, but she didn't wear anything different. Same sneakers, same jeans, same gray hoodie, not out of stubbornness, but out of intention. She needed them to see that she hadn't changed, but maybe they had to. The automatic glass doors parted with a faint chime. Inside, nothing had changed either. Shiny tiles, glossy cars, and the same judgmental air that clung to her skin the day before. The receptionist barely looked up. A salesman near the entrance paused mid-conversation to glance at her, then leaned over to whisper something to a colleague. This time, the laugh wasn't even hidden. Conrad Blake looked up from the customer lounge, irritation flickering across his features like a shadow. He stood slowly, smoothing the lapel of his navy blazer. His voice, when it reached her, was coated with the same faux politeness that had bruised her yesterday. "Back again, are we?" he said, walking toward her. I think I made it clear. Viewings for that model are by appointment only." "I'd like to see the interior," Leona said calmly, her voice unwavering. Conrad's smile tightened. "This car," he said slowly, as if explaining it to a child, "costs nearly $300,000. It's not for browsers or dreamers. If you're not ready to make a serious offer, then—" A soft hum outside the glass doors interrupted him. Every head in the showroom turned toward the sound of a sleek black car pulling up in front. It moved like a shadow, silent, powerful, and precise. A Rolls-Royce Phantom, midnight pearl finish, with a license plate that bore no dealership branding. The driver stepped out, walked to the back, and opened the rear door with the kind of mechanical grace that spoke of long-practiced deference. A man stepped out, tall, composed, wearing a pale gray suit and polished shoes that didn't need to shine to command attention. It took the showroom half a second to recognize the presence, even before recognizing the man. Elias Rowe, the billionaire, the tech mogul, the face behind clean energy initiatives, and the man once photographed shaking hands with presidents. But to Leona, he was still the man who'd left when her life was about to begin. She didn't move. Elias walked in like the room belonged to him, not because of arrogance, but because people like him never questioned whether they belonged. His eyes scanned the room until they found hers. And when they did, the corners of his mouth lifted, not into a smile but something far more human. Recognition. Conrad nearly stumbled over his words. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Montcliff Elite Motors. How can I help?" Elias ignored him. His gaze remained on Leona as he approached. Every footstep was a challenge to the silence now blanketing the room. "I'm not here for a car," he said, loud enough for every eye to hear. "I'm here for her." A ripple went through the showroom. Conrad blinked, faltered. "I'm sorry, do you?" Elias turned to him, his voice even. "Do you know who this woman is?" Conrad opened his mouth but said nothing. "She's Leona Wells," Elias said. "Founder of Rise and Walk, a non-profit that helps hundreds of disabled children in the Northeast. She raised a daughter alone, supported her sister through cancer, and still found time to serve people your world has forgotten." The room was frozen. Even the hum of the showroom lights felt distant. "She came here yesterday and was dismissed. Not because she wasn't serious, but because she didn't look like money," Elias continued. "So I came here not to buy her anything, but to see what happens when the truth walks back into the room in the same shoes you laughed at." Leona didn't speak. She didn't have to, because for the first time, they saw her not through a label, not through a price tag, but through the reflection of someone who once left and now returned, not to fix what was broken, but to make sure she was seen. Conrad Blake didn't know what to do with the silence pressing in around him. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but full, heavy with implication, thick with eyes that now saw the cracks in his polished performance. He cleared his throat, desperate to reclaim control. "Mr. Rowe," he began, "I assure you, we treat all our customers with equal—" "Don't lie," Leona interrupted quietly, her voice not raised, but it cut through the room like a needle through silk. "You didn't even treat me like a customer." Conrad looked at her now, for the first time seeing not the worn jeans or hoodie, but the weight behind her gaze. I misunderstood the situation." "No, you didn't," she replied, still calm. "You saw me, and you decided in 5 seconds that I wasn't worth your time." Her words didn't rise, they didn't accuse, but they didn't tremble either. From the far side of the room, Malik Reyes stepped forward, the youngest staff member on the floor, barely 3 months on the job, with a tie slightly askew and sneakers that squeaked a little when he moved. He hesitated, then spoke up, voice steady but soft. "She asked about the coupe yesterday. I was going to help her before Mr. Blake called me off." A few heads turned sharply. Conrad's jaw tensed. "Malik, that's enough." "No," Malik said, firmer now. "It's not. I saw what happened. You laughed, told her to try the used lot across the street. You told me to hand her a brochure and move on." The crowd of customers who had up until now pretended to be interested in car specs and gloss finish colors had grown still. One woman whispered to her partner. A suited man with cufflinks stopped texting. Victoria Lenz, the dealership's regional director, had entered unnoticed amid the tension. Now, she stepped forward, her heels clicking like a gavel. "Conrad," she said sharply. "My office, now." "Victoria," he started, trying to regain footing. "Now," she repeated. Her voice was soft but final. Conrad shot a glare at Malik, then at Elias, and finally at Leona, as if trying to memorize the moment that would cost him everything. Then he turned and walked out, his polished shoes suddenly sounding too loud, too proud for the ground he walked on. The door to the back office shut with a definitive thud. Victoria faced Leona, her expression composed. "Miss Wells, I deeply apologize for what happened here, and I appreciate your composure." Leona nodded once. "I'm not here for an apology," she said. "I'm here for something to change." Elias stepped forward. "I have 3 requests." Victoria raised a brow. "Go on." "First," he said, "Leona will lead a mandatory training session here next month, on bias awareness, customer dignity, and human respect." Victoria nodded. "Done." "Second," he continued, turning toward Malik, "this man will handle her entire transaction, from paperwork to delivery." Malik's eyes widened. "Me?" Leona looked at him, a smile ghosting her lips. "Yes, you." "Third," Elias said, turning back to Victoria, "Conrad Blake will spend 3 months volunteering at Rise and Walk. No suit, no title, just hands, humility, and time." Victoria hesitated for the first time. "That may be difficult, too." "It's not a punishment," Leona interrupted gently. "It's a mirror. If he wants to see who he really is, he needs to be where dignity can't be faked." Victoria looked between the two of them. Then finally, she nodded. "I'll make it happen." There were no cheers, no applause, just breath, a collective exhale. The kind that comes when truth has landed. Leona turned to Malik. "Shall we take a look at the coupe?" He beamed, a little unsure, a little proud. "Absolutely." As they walked together toward the midnight onyx coupe, the floor beneath Leona's worn shoes no longer felt like glass. It felt like ground she had claimed. Not by shouting, not by force, but by simply refusing to shrink. 3 weeks later, the grand hall of the Crestview Community Center shimmered not with chandeliers or crystal, but with laughter, the clatter of wheelchair wheels, and the soft hum of music coming from a modest speaker in the corner. Children with braces on their legs danced, some spinning in circles, some bobbing to the beat from their chairs. Parents lined the walls, wide-eyed, grateful for a night that didn't feel like a hospital waiting room. At the side of the hall, wearing a sky-blue volunteer vest over a button-down shirt that hadn't seen starch in weeks, was Conrad Blake. He didn't carry a champagne flute or flash that smile that used to close deals in minutes. He was crouched beside a little boy who had dropped a cupcake and was now teetering on tears. "I think this one's braver than the last one," Conrad whispered, handing him a new one, sprinkles perfectly intact. The boy blinked. "Are you the janitor?" Conrad paused, then let out a soft chuckle. "I guess you could say that, kiddo. I'm cleaning up the mess I made." Nearby, Leona Wells watched the scene from behind a fold-out table where she'd been organizing gift bags for the children. She didn't interrupt. She didn't walk over. Watching was enough, for now. The gala was for Rise and Walk's expansion program, a celebration of new sponsorships that would allow them to open 3 more therapy centers. Elias had made the biggest pledge, an anonymous one, of course. He didn't speak that night. He spent most of it in the background, checking sound systems, helping move supplies, even fixing a speaker wire that had come loose mid-song. At one point, a staff member whispered to Leona, "He's really not the billionaire I expected." She smiled faintly. "That's the point." Later in the evening, while a teenage girl with Down syndrome gave an impassioned speech about building a garden for her center, Leona found Conrad in the corner, carrying a tray of water bottles and wincing as he bent down to pick up confetti. "Harder than selling cars?" she asked, her tone light. Conrad straightened slowly, sweat beading at his temple. "Much harder. Nobody signs contracts here. You just show up and hope they smile at you." She nodded. "Exactly." He set the tray down and looked at her, the way people look when they want forgiveness but know they haven't earned it yet. "I don't expect you to forget what happened," he said quietly, "but I want you to know I haven't gone a day without thinking about it." "Good," Leona said. "Because change isn't what you promise. It's what you do when no one claps for it." He nodded. I'm learning that now. Slowly, honestly. A few feet away, a girl in a motorized chair rolled up. "Mr. Conrad, can you help me get to the snack table?" Conrad grinned. "I'm on it, Captain." As he turned to escort her, Leona watched him go, not with sympathy but with a cautious kind of hope, the kind that blooms when pride has been broken down and something human grows in its place. Elias, standing by the far wall adjusting a projector, caught her eye for just a second. He offered no smile, no wave, just a look. A soft, unspoken understanding. He wasn't there for her. He was there because she'd asked for help, and because for the first time in years, he wanted to do the right thing without needing a stage. After the final speech, as the children began boarding buses and parents gathered coats, Leona stood outside beneath the halo of streetlight, her arms wrapped around herself against the cold. Elias approached, holding out a bottle of water. "Thank you for emailing me," he said. Leona didn't respond immediately. She took the bottle, twisted the cap slowly. "Thank you for showing up," she replied. He nodded once. No apology. No promises. Just two people standing in the quiet, each trying in their own way to become better than who they once were. A month after the gala, the showroom at Montclair Elite Motors no longer buzzed with the same sterile tension. It had changed, not with balloons or PR stunts, but with something quieter, more enduring. There were no more sideways glances at modest clothes, no more smirks when someone asked to see a premium model while wearing sneakers. The marble floor gleamed the same way, but the atmosphere had been peeled back and rewritten by actions, not slogans. Inside the office, Victoria Lenz sat with a notepad open, while Leona stood beside a projector, giving the final session of her implicit bias training. Her voice was steady, not theatrical, more like someone passing along hard-earned wisdom than lecturing. "Bias," she said, "isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the pause before you smile, or the glance at someone's shoes before you greet them." In the back of the room, Conrad Blake sat still in a gray shirt, no tie, pen in hand. He wrote more than he listened, but that was okay. Change starts in silence. Malik Reyes sat next to him, now proudly wearing his new title, Lead Customer Specialist. He occasionally leaned over to nudge Conrad when he looked too tired, whispering jokes only the two of them could hear. During the break, Victoria pulled Conrad out onto the balcony behind the showroom. For a moment, neither of them spoke. She looked at the skyline, then finally said, "You know, I used to think leadership meant knowing who to prioritize. Turns out, it means knowing who you've ignored." Conrad didn't deny it. Sometimes you have to lose everything that made you feel superior to remember how to be decent. He looked down at the street. And sometimes, you need to be stripped bare before you can see people at eye level again. Later that afternoon, Leona returned to the dealership, not to buy a car, but for a final meeting. She wore the same style of hoodie, still in faded jeans, her presence unchanged. Yet when she stepped inside, everyone stood, not because she was a celebrity, but because they saw her now for who she truly was. A laminated placard had been placed on the reception wall. The Leona Wells Standard, respect first. Always. Underneath it was a quote from Conrad. "I used to think selling was about knowing who could afford luxury. Now I know it's about knowing how to treat people like they matter before they prove it." After the meeting, Malik handed Leona a small wooden box. Inside were the keys to the Midnight Onyx coupe, engraved with a silver tag, to Brielle. "For every fight you've won and the ones they never saw." Outside, as the sun dipped low, Brielle stood in awe beside the car. She wore a patterned headscarf and her smile stretched wide with disbelief. "Leona, I don't think I deserve this." Leona wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "It's not about the car," she whispered. "It's about everything you survived. It's about them never getting to define you by what you looked like or what you went through." As Brielle slid into the driver's seat, Leona stepped back, watching. From across the street, Elias stood by a tree, hands in his coat pockets, saying nothing. He didn't need to come closer. His part was done. He had returned, helped lift the veil, and stayed out of the light. Leona gave a small nod in his direction. Not a thank you, not a goodbye, just acknowledgement. A shared truth between two people who had walked through failure and come out honest. She turned away, walking toward the passenger door, her feet light, her back unbowed. And as the car rolled away from Moncliffe's glass doors, it wasn't just carrying a cancer survivor and her sister. It carried a new standard. One that said, dignity isn't handed out by those in suits. It's reclaimed by those who never stopped walking in their own shoes. In the end, Leona's story isn't about a car, it's about a mirror. A mirror held up to society, asking, what do we see when someone doesn't wear wealth on their sleeve? Leona taught us that true value isn't measured by price tags or first impressions, but by integrity, sacrifice, and how we rise when we're dismissed. She didn't demand respect. She lived in a way that made it impossible to deny. Even when she was overlooked, humiliated, and cast aside, she refused to shrink herself to fit a system built on surface-level assumptions. And perhaps the most powerful lesson lies in how she chose to respond. Not with rage or revenge, but with dignity, calm, and a firm belief in change. In helping Conrad transform, she proved that real power doesn't come from money or status. It comes from grace, resilience, and refusing to let the world's prejudice define your worth. This story reminds us, you don't have to wear luxury to carry value. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one with the loudest impact. And sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't change the world, but it can change someone's world entirely. So now, we'd love to know, where are you watching from? Leave a comment and tell us what part of the world you're in. And if this story touched something deep inside you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us. Respect is not earned by looks, it's owed by default.